Meeting to order for the day. First item is approval of today's agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve today's agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to pay the bills. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we have a recognition of a donation to the Sheriff's Office from St. James Church for $100, which we appreciate very much. So, thank you to them. And let's see, next item is Minnesota Intergovernmental Trust Board Report. Don, come on up. Don Daraskovich.
Yes, Mr.
Close?
Chair. Thank you very much. Perfect.
Oh,
Couldn't have been better. Well, good evening.
good evening.
Mr.
Thanks
Chair,
for being here.
Commissioners. Thank you very much for putting us on your busy evening schedule. We appreciate it. My name is Don Daraskovich. I am your MCIT risk management consultant. I replaced Jane Henniger, who recently retired after 18 years with our organization. She is out glamping around the country. She's enjoying herself in her new role. There are my business cards if anyone would like a copy of the same. I will pretty much follow the report. I wasn't planning to use the computer this evening, so we'll follow along with the paper report. I'm not going to read every word here. It'll take us quite some time. I'll touch on the highlights of 2018 activity and 2019 updates and changes. MCIT, Minnesota Counties Intergovernmental Trust, serves 81 of 87 counties here in Minnesota. The larger counties, Hennepin, Ramsey, St. Louis, Olmsted, Anoka, all self-insure their risk management needs, so they pretty much handle what they need on their own. I believe Anoka County was at one time a member, and now they self-insure. We not only handle or serve county members, we serve county-related entities such as SWCDs, historical societies, ag societies, various collaboratives and initiatives that form their own joint power entities. So those organizations are also eligible for membership in our program. Our MCIT board consists of county commissioners like yourself, auditors, treasurers, administrators. So our MCIT board is very representative of our county member boards. Our primary funding is our taxpayer contributions paid to us by our members. One thing to keep in mind that MCIT is not an insurance company. Again, we are a joint power entity. We are a self-insuring, risk-sharing pool. Basically, our members combine monetary resources to pay claims of members and related expenses. And anything that is not used for claim purposes or expenses are returned to our members. So those taxpayer dollars go back to our members and can serve other taxpayer uses. That's something that would not occur if you had your coverage placed with a standard traditional insurance company. Again, those dividends would get paid to stockholders. So that is a large differential between us and a standard insurance company. A little bit of the history about MCIT. We were formed in 1970s. There were a few commissioners that were having difficulty getting coverage, rising costs for their liability and their work comp coverage. So they decided to pool their funds together, pay their own claims. There was such success that in 1980, the mid-1980s, they added property, liability, and auto coverage. So that's where we are today. We're providing property, liability, auto, workers' compensation for public-related entities that meet Statute 466.1. We want to recognize and acknowledge that Clay County has been a member of our program since 1980, and we thank you and we greatly appreciate that. On the front page, you can see that this year in 2019, we are celebrating 40 years of successfully managing risks with our members. This success is not our success, but it's a result of our members' commitment to loss prevention and risk management and acceptance of our program not as a commodity. So again, we thank you, appreciate all our member counties for that success. On the next page, in the second page in the black highlighted margin on the left is our MCIT rate history since 2010. Rates will fund future claim costs based on past experience. As you can see, the aggregate property and casualty rate has gone down since 2010 by over 30%. And the workers' compensation rate has declined more than 32%. The result of that has been from positive claim outcomes of our members. So again, attention to loss control, safety awareness, and good claim handling between ourselves and our members has resulted in declining rates, declining costs for coverage. An advantage of being in a risk-sharing pool is that many of our members have similarity of exposures. We gain economies of scale, which allows us to smooth out peaks and valleys of large catastrophe losses. It also provides rate stability. If you notice in the chart, the property casualty rate between 2015 and 2016 and 2018, 2019 were almost identical. So to make an estimate of what your future cost might be, at least your rate is going to be equal, if not less, than the year before. In the lower left-hand corner, we like to discuss dividend. Again, dividend is specific to our program, where we return taxpayer funds that are not used for claim payment or expenses. On a whole, the overall trust returned $12 million in 2018. You can see your county's contribution or return there next to that. MCIT, we don't typically raise rates just to pay dividends. We're not really a banking function. We're more of a coverage function. And our MCIT board goal is not to assess members any additional funds should we have a shortfall between what we collect and what we need to pay. So if that should ever occur in the future, we'll handle it in a different fashion by spreading the overage over all members for future years. But again, in the last 28 years, that has not happened. We've actually returned money that we've not needed to use. In the center of the second and third page, you'll see circle graphs that are depicting claim history. We break that down between property and casualty claims in the top from 2014 to 2018. In the bottom section, we talk about workers' compensation experience for the trust as a whole. These statistics represent all members for those years. There is not specific member breakdown here because certain members have certain operations that other members do not have. And if should a member have a shock or catastrophe loss, that would skew the results. So the result here is for the trust as a whole overall. As you can see for property casualty 2014 to 2018, the auto line of coverage has been the most frequent number of claims at 61%. And our most severe claim by line of coverage at 32%. So auto has been where we've seen our claim activity. An interesting observation, though, is if you look at the dark green and the orange, which depicts public employee liability and law enforcement liability, only 9% of our claims derive from those areas, but represent 36% of our claim dollars. So those areas, the public employee liability and the law enforcement liability, are where we're actually spending our most number of claim dollars. There have been some initiatives to help try and improve that recently, and the trust will continue doing that, helping those areas try to improve their experience. In the lower section of the circle graphs is the workers' compensation claims. Again, both frequency shown on the left and severity to the right. On the frequency side, our sheriff, jail, and highway operations generated 51% of our claims for workers' compensation. And the severity side, those operations generated 64% of our claims dollars. So there again, we have the same areas of coverage representing both frequency and severity. Comment we can make here is that those operations for our members tend to be more of a exposure related. They're 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operations. They're very asset laden. There's very hands-on human intervention in those operations. So it's expected that there's going to be workers' compensation activity in those claims. In the bottom of the second and third pages, we'll talk about experience rating. Our program only experience rates the workers' compensation coverage. There's many risk pools throughout the country that will experience rate auto, they'll experience rate general liability, and they'll experience workers' compensation. Experience rate rating means what we do is we view what a member has incurred in losses in the prior 3 years and compare that against what was expected for them to occur during those 3-year period. And if a member has incurred greater losses than what actuarially we expected, they would pay more for their coverage. Vice versa, if a member has resulted in less number of claims than expected, they would pay a less amount for their coverage. And the good news is, if you look in the right banner, the red banner towards the right at the bottom of that page, Clays County Experience Modification 0.895 for 2019 means that you're paying actually less for your coverage than average. So your claim outcomes for workers' compensation has been better than average. That's resulted in paying $31,000 less than what the average member would have paid for the workers' compensation coverage. So we thank you for that. We encourage you to continue doing that. We again appreciate the attention to loss control and safety awareness, and encourage you that continues in the future. Any questions so
Is that
far?
based on a per thousand rate?
The actual cost for coverage is per thousand of payroll by classification category. You can have clerical, you can have maintenance staff. There's
Truck
various
might be more.
classifications. But it actually incorporates a 3-year period. We discount the last most current year. For 2019, we did not use 2018 because those losses need to develop. There's a lot of reserve there in many of those work comp cases. So we hold that year aside, and we include it for next year's computation. Does that answer your question, Commissioner? Yes. Moving to the right blue banner and the right of the third page, we discussed notable changes the program has taken this year for 2019. These were passed by our board in January. Our board made the decision after listening to many of the members' suggestions, what they'd like to see in the way of coverage changes, and these are the changes that they've adopted. The good news is 4 out of these 5 coverage changes are increased coverage for no additional contribution. So they've decided to include this without charging anything extra for it. The first one was to try and ease the use of the data compromise CyberOne coverage was an actual increase to $100,000 from $50,000. This is the cyber liability coverage. We are all familiar with the data breach and cyber liability exposure. That is a result of recent, this is an upcoming area of coverage. It probably will get some more attention next year in the future because it's just one that keeps coming back and back and back. So that was an increase in coverage. The second one is builder's risk coverage. For any structure a member decides to build or remodel, the building coverage was increased from $500,000 to $750,000. And the contents coverage went from $100,000 to $150,000. Again, for no additional cost or contribution. Now, many of these coverages are increasable limits, so forth. We just need to know that ahead of time. So should a structure larger than $750,000 be anticipated to be built, we just ask that we know about that ahead of time so we can work with our reinsurers and try to arrange coverage for a greater value if you have that need. The third coverage change were for drones. These are for member-owned drones operated by member employees under FAA rules, meaning no speed racing or stunting. So drones recently have increased in usage. Typically in the past they are used for law enforcement activities, and we did provide liability for law enforcement in the past. Now if a drone is scheduled, it has to be a scheduled piece of equipment on your coverage. It will receive both property and liability coverage for all uses, which may include the assessor's office, the highway department office, or law enforcement use. So whatever need there is, we just ask that it be scheduled. And the value of the drone should include any value of camera equipment that gets attached to the piece of equipment. Drones are rated on the weight of the vehicle, so we also need to know how heavy the vehicle is.
Is that just for county-owned drones, or
It's
If we
county
use
owned.
If we use some other people's drones,
It's county owned only. So
Okay.
currently, it's just for those aerial devices that the county or the member owns.
okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Fourthly, our electronic data processing equipment coverage. That's computer hardware and software. Again, we've tried to make this easier to understand and use. In the past, we had required separate limits for temporary equipment off-site or equipment that had been in transit or equipment that exceeded a certain value. Now what we've gone to is a simple blanket limit, total coverage for all hardware and software. You know, we ask every year in April that you submit an inventory so that we can make sure that that blanket value, that amount is sufficient should you have a full total loss. But now you no longer have to require every change you make during the year. We do recommend that if you make a large significant change, either increase or decrease in your equipment, let us know, because we want to make sure there's ample coverage should you have a total loss, or we don't want you paying for coverage you don't need if you should decide not to have a large amount of equipment any further. Lastly is liability for Class 3 dams. These are designated by the Department of Natural Resources as a Class 3 dam, which is a dam in rural outlying areas where the result or the hazard to downstream life is nominal or minimal. So these would be your dams in the remote locations. And again, that's any liability that's assessed against a member. So it doesn't have to be an owned dam, just if you were ever assessed any liability for inspecting or maintaining a dam, we would defend the member for that. If there's a question about if a dam is a Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3, typically a county engineer would be able to determine which class your dam is.
I have a question. We're currently in the planning stages of the FM diversion, and I would guess that would be part of a conversation, the dam unit put on the river. Would MCIT be part of that discussion?
Yeah, that's considered a high hazard dam.
Okay.
I don't know if that's Class 1, 2, or 3, but it,
Typically, Class 3 are very low hazard.
Yeah.
Typically, nobody living anywhere near it. So if you have any population near the structure, that's typically a Class 1 or Class 2 dam, and there would have to be coverage placed outside the trust program. So,
And that's something we will have to ask further questions. It's going to be, that would be built by the Army Corps of Engineers, and
Okay.
I think they continue to maintain that, so.
Finally, onto the back page, our risk management consultation services, loss control services, various services and materials that we supply as part of our program. I, as your risk management consultant, can respond to coverage questions related to liability and risk management concerns. I also can answer coverage questions, how something should be scheduled, if there's a question about that. I also provide contract reviews from a risk management perspective. We like to look at contracts before they're signed and executed to make sure there's nothing adverse in the contract related to your coverage. Sometimes we see things in there that's just that we have to bring attention to. Lastly, I help identify potential risks and provide advice on how to manage them. My cohort, Deb Sletton, your loss control consultant, she provides such services, written safety programs, hazard identification, safety audits, interpretation of OSHA standards. She can help you with those. Employee injury data analysis. And she also can be attend safety committee meetings and assist those folks in those efforts. In the dark green box to the right, we want to point out the Employee Assistance Plan. This is a voluntary, confidential, no-cost professional counseling service for employees and their family members. There are also individuals that are specifically trained in the elected official area and law enforcement personnel. We recommend you kind of take advantage of that. I can see that last year, 7% of your staff was using that, and that's very good. We'd like to see that 5% is the average, so you're doing very well in that field. The Employee Assistance Program can, in the last 2015 to 2018, handled 46 cases that would have gone to either a grievance or a lawsuit for the trust as a whole. So it can be a very good risk management tool to avoid further problems or complications down the road. The center two boxes I won't speak much of, kind of running close here on time. Various training for officials and elected officials, various awareness and prevention materials that we provide. Both of those are available. On the training side, we do offer a Peace Officers Accredited Training online program. That's for your law enforcement staff who need to complete their continuing education requirements. We can do that online where they don't need to travel to attend a class, but it does qualify for meeting their continuing ed requirements. So we have that available. Currently, I don't believe your county is taking advantage of that, and you can. That's a very reasonable cost. Lastly, at the bottom, we're often asked how commissioners can be more involved with the MCIT program. Again, support safety initiatives, support safety committee, return injured employees to work, attend risk management training when we can come out and do that. We do provide on-site training programs as requested, and support and encourage training of all in education for all employees and volunteers. And lastly, to try and learn how the coverage might match contracts before making final decisions about those. Lastly, promote safety at all levels and engage us, MCIT, as often as you can. We like hearing from our members. We enjoy helping them with whatever risk management issues that they have. So on behalf of the MCIT board and the service team, I want to thank Clay County for the continued membership and support and participation in our MCIT program. That concludes this report.
Thanks, Don. Any questions for Don?
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate you coming up here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we are at committee reports already. Jenny?
Thank you. Missed a meeting last week. I was at the state 4-H horse camp, so I apologize for that, but there were 100 different 4-Hers from all over Minnesota and North Dakota and Wisconsin, so that was exciting to see. I attended the MetroCog Executive Committee meeting. We had an inform on the audit report that is in the process of being prepared. We'll have a presentation for that at our meeting on this Thursday, and discussion about the 2020 budget and remodel. There will be slight nominal increases for all of the different entities, municipalities, in terms of the budgets, and so I'm sure you will be getting that bill shortly, but it is small in terms of what we contribute. I am in the process of meeting with different individuals to complete the CEO for Lakeland review. So I will be finishing those up by Monday, and had some discussion in terms of Lakeland's budget and the increases that they will be asking for. One thing that 2020 will mean for Lakeland is that our grant for the jail mental health piece will be up, and so I don't know specifically if it's 200,000, 222, close by there. And I know I've been at several meetings where either Steve Larson has reported on the numbers that we're serving in the jail with that, and Julie has reported on that, and so as we decipher where to go forward, I think this board is quite committed to the outcomes that partnership has provided, and so hopefully we can find a way to fund that going forward. I also attended the AMC district meeting in Fergus Falls. Quite a attendance from all the different district counties, and a good report by Steve as to what's going on in Clay County, and so I appreciate the opportunity to attend that. That concludes my reports.
Thank you. Kevin?
All right, on Tuesday, June 11th, I was in Fergus Falls for the Lakes Country Service Cooperative Board of Directors meeting. The several items were discussed there. One of the topics of interest there was there's a real interest on the part of the Lakes Country Service Cooperative and talking with Moorhead Public Schools regarding this alternative education deal that looking at with the old Sam's Club building. There's a real interest on the part of Lakes Country to maybe collaborate with them on that.
Nice.
So I know there was the board approved a letter for Jeremy Kovash to send to Brandon to have those discussions, and if I can be of help with talking with Brandon, I would be happy to do so too. They're talked about they have their annual conference that's coming up in Duluth on July 10th through the 12th. And then on the Friday the 14th, I also attended the District 4 meeting, as Commissioner Mojo talked about. Yesterday, I had a Diversion Authority Chairs Coordinating meeting, and, you know, we talked more about the Buffalo Red watershed permitting process. Talked more about some legal issues regarding the contested case hearing. Colonel Jansen, who will be the new colonel coming in, replacing Colonel Calkins, will be here on the 27th for our board meeting there, and Colonel Calkins will also be here, and that'll be our last opportunity to see him before he moves on. The MCC JPA we thought was going to be presented today. Unfortunately, Mr. Shockley had overbooked himself, so we'll have that next week. So we'll be going over that, and I do know that he did give a presentation to the Morehead City Council last Monday, I believe it was. So we'll be looking for that, and then get that going, and then with hopefully some organizational meetings starting right away in July. So keep that moving in the right direction. Next Tuesday, Tuesday afternoon, we are holding, as far as I know right now, we are holding interviews in the director search for the Diversion Authority, the executive director position. So I will be part of that next Tuesday afternoon. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Frank?
Tuesday, I went to a meeting at Spring Prairie Township. There was discussion there on the Hutterites fueling station. That's going to be coming up in the planning.
Right, I did talk with Matt a little bit about that.
Okay. Matt Jacobson was there. I know he's only been on staff here for 2 weeks. And I really got a compliment on how he handled that meeting. He did a great job, and he was knowledgeable of what was happening out there, what was going on. He gave good advice. And I think the township was satisfied, the Hutterites were satisfied, and just gave a good presentation there. And I mean, that'll be ongoing. Of course, what we found out, they applied for a permit, and of course, there's that good old overlay that someone put on there some time ago. You know, it's on their own land, and they don't know how the overlay got on or why it's there, but they're going to work on trying to get that overlay removed on their own land so they can use it for what they want.
The aggregate protection,
Yeah, it's
correct?
aggregate protection overlay.
I think he said that'll be on the July
Yes.
planning commission meetings.
Yeah. So there again, like I say, Matt Jacobson did a great job there. Wednesday, the extension, found out Mitzi, the 4-H leader, is going to be leaving. I think she got married last weekend, and she is leaving and moving on to a different job, so we'll be searching for a new 4-H leader there. Also, Lynn Flanders from the Extension Master Gardeners gave a report too, and it's amazing what those people do around town, you know, it's just, they just go all over, and she gave a report and all the different places they go to, and I don't think there's that many members on the thing there, but boy, great report there. There's 2 new interns working there, along with the 4-H and stuff. So that was that meeting. That night I went to Hitterdall. They had a night out, sort of a safety night out, picnic there. I attended that, and Shannon Thompson was there, and Sheriff Mark Empting was there, and he had a couple of his deputies there. And I do have to compliment Mark. He gave some very good advice. One of the residents asked Mark, if you hit a deer out in the road, you know, who do you call? And Mark gave him good advice and call a tow truck, so. So I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but it was good advice anyway. So, it was, no, he did go on with what should be done, but, after that, I went to Mullen Township and talked to them, and they were, I think we need to straighten out a little bit on roads. They're under the impression that every road will be bladed every 2 weeks, so, I think we have to get our, I don't know if that's in our contract or not, but I think we have to get together on our highway tracking and find out for sure what is our contract for, with these townships as far as road blading and stuff. Friday, the District 4 meeting, and there again, I too want to compliment Steve. He did a great job on the report. That was a good report, and I don't know, a lot of stuff at the meeting was sort of highlighted towards what we're happening here in Clay County. And so I think we're doing good things here. Saturday, I went to the Felton Parade, and Monday, last night, Hawley Wellhead, that was presented, and we took care of that, approved that, Hawley approved that contract with the Hawley Wellhead, and stayed for the city council meeting. And then today, as we all did, we attended the picnic, so, very good picnic. I want to thank the staff for putting that on. It was well attended, and it was.
You've been at a lot of picnics, and you must.
I'm eating well.
You're getting your fill of brats.
And there's another one coming up July 8th. That's my report.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, I, along with the other commissioners and staff, we all were participants in the county employees picnic and served hot dogs and hamburgers to our valued employees. That was very nice. And then this afternoon, I attended the meeting of the Clay County Adult Mental Health Local Advisory Committee. And we had a presentation by Alyssa Schultz from the Lakeland Mental Health Center's Mobile Mental Health Crisis Response Team. And it's set up for both telephone responses and, if necessary, boots on the ground, in-person type responses. They also elected officers for next year, and that is my entire report for the week.
Thank you. And let's see, last week I attended the Elder Abuse Conference and read their proclamation, and it was well attended and a good event. Yesterday I had Land of the Dancing Sky. We had that here in Moorhead at CCRI provided the space, and everybody was very pleased with that. And most of the meeting was the executive director of the Minnesota Board on Aging that was there to give a presentation. And let's see, I attended the AMC District 4 meeting in Fergus Falls, which has been reported on, and also the picnic today, which was a great event. And that was it for me. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I've had a series of discussions with the Planning and Zoning Department. On Wednesday last week, I met with Shelley Jeffers. We had some budget discussions for the upcoming 2020 budget, but we did end up getting back into our discussion about space issues. And one of the challenges that we're facing again is in Clay County we have 4 chamber judges. We're averaging about 4.6. The need is for 4.6 judges. This year the legislature did provide funding for an additional chamber. That chamber is going to be in Becker County, and they're going to be helping Otter Tail County. One of the solutions that they're working for with Clay County is District 8 is going to be sending judges up for 4 out of the 9-week schedule to help alleviate some of the work that's up here. The challenge that we have is they're going to be dealing mostly with the lockups, so they won't be able to go into the master calendar, which while it's helpful, the judges are still concerned about the workload. They've been utilizing, if you see, they've been utilizing the first floor courtroom that they use a lot of times for the child support area, and so they're looking at any space issues, and if the judges had stated that they'd be willing to come here and talk to this board if for whatever reason you guys would like to hear additional information. Again, on Friday, I also attended the District 4 meeting that's been addressed. On Monday, we had an insurance discussion with the HR department. We have an upcoming meeting next Tuesday, I believe, Tuesday after board. Completed some financial paperwork in regards to the Eventide expansion. Participated in the Diversion Authority Coordination meeting. Commissioner Campbell discussed. Met with the Sheriff's Department and County Attorney on a citizen concern issue. Today, again, participated. I met with Don here prior to the MCIT presentation. And we had a county picnic. And again, I would like to thank the board for their work today. I think that it was great to see everybody there handing out food. I know our employees appreciate seeing you, and so thank you for being there. A shout out to the EAC group. It was another terrific picnic. I think location, they get better every year, and so that was a real fun opportunity for our employees to get together. So. I had some discussions with Scott Fettig. I shared last week that he was looking to come up in July. Due to the 4th of July, he would like to come before the board on July 9th to talk about a master planning contract. One of the things that I think that we talked about last week, or I talked about last week, was looking at setting up a committee, some of the information that he'll be looking for from the commissioners on the front side of it, on that planning, if the board were to move forward with that. They'd like to have some discussion, and so had some conversations with the chair, and so I would encourage us to maybe have some discussion about establishing some committees. If I know we're a little ahead of the game, but at least with our planning for what the commissioners want that scope to potentially look like would be beneficial.
So don't we currently have a committee set aside that looks at space needs?
We have a campus improvement committee, and believe that they set up a lot of the needs of what we're going to work on and focus on as far as the carpets, paints.
And we have two commissioners on
Yeah,
that?
Commissioner Gross and Commissioner Haney.
I don't want to volunteer you for anything, but it seems as though you've had those discussions leading up, and it would seem as though that would be inappropriate to add that conversation to that committee or not.
Yeah, and I think that would be fine. That's what Steve and I talked about is, you know, it may take a while to get going with some of these, but I think that's the first thing that needs to be done is to determine, you know, what those needs are going to be. And if you two are still willing to do that, we can just add that
Sure.
to your...
As far as I go, I'm
And then the
concerned.
other issue Steve and I talked about was, you know,
Financial
like we did
piece.
with the jail and then how we're gonna pay for it, and so, you know, I know Kevin's interested in that, and he's a money man, and I participated on the jail and the LAC, so I guess I would be willing to do that too, so. And then Lori and Steve and whoever else, but when we start with that, I guess we'll probably look at what the scope committee comes up with first, and then we'll do that, so. So does that sound all right?
I think it's very important that, I mean, yes, we are a committee, but I think it's really going to have to be a commission type of discussion as far as the needs of that. Because everybody's on a different committee that needs space and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
so I think we all have to get involved in that thing, whether somewhere along the line.
Are you looking for motions to the effect
Well,
yet?
if we're going to include it with the capital improvement, if it would be under that umbrella, I think that would be fine. We would already have that.
Yeah.
But for the financial piece, we should.
Financial piece.
We should
need-
probably, I would make a motion to appoint Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Whalen to that committee, and whoever else is deemed necessary.
Second.
Motion and a second on that committee, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 And
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
apologize just a moment, my motion did include putting that on there with
Yeah,
per diem.
I'm just wondering, because both Grant and I are on the planning for financing of the jail, maybe we should just change the wording of that committee to be planning for facilities financing or something like that. And
Who's on that though?
It's Grant and I are on that.
But in terms of other
Oh,
individuals?
Well, we have, we always have our administrator on there, Lori's on there.
And
In the
then
case,
as
in the,
needed.
yeah, for example, in the case of the LEC, we had Wanda, when she was still the finance director of the city of Moorhead. So we brought in whoever we needed to.
Right. And I guess
That's what the need is, and then go from there. so.
Mike, and I'm fine with whoever's on it, I just want to make sure that as our sales tax pieces start coming through, I mean, you're still going to have conversations in terms of how things are coming in and.
Yep. Yeah, oh yeah,
Totals,
that's, but I think the financing part for the jail, I think that's done. I mean, we still have to, like you said, we still have to have reports, but maybe just changing the name of that.
So facilities would be all encompassing.
Yeah. I think that's, Jenny, you made the motion, I don't know if that, of course, we already, I don't know if we voted on it or not.
We
but-
did.
Okay, all right, well, so,
Oh, yeah.
anyway.
And maybe we could just dissolve that one.
Yeah,
and
we'll
then-
call that the new one, the Facility Finance Committee.
Yeah, then we'll
Then we can
dissolve the other one.
just
That's,
dissolve the other one, that's easy.
all right, that's perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
Steve, anything else?
To just,
Oh, wait a minute, Frank.
That's right, go ahead,
Sorry.
Steve.
Go ahead. No, and I was just gonna say, my hope would be is that we could establish something sooner than later, just to have some of those initial discussions, because I know
Right.
that Scott is gonna want to, have some information right away, so.
I just gotta remind Colleen on September 3rd, on our annual conference at St. Cloud, we have to get our
Oh.
reservations in. More than likely, a lot of times we've all been going down to that, and I think last year we ended up with a Holiday
We
Inn.
could probably just make reservations now.
Well,
I did
I don't
get
think they
something
opened
from, I did get some.
And that's for the conference, but we can still make reservations, and sometimes we found that the rate is cheaper, and the non-conference rate has been cheaper there than, I think we did that once before, and it was less than the conference rate, so.
Whatever,
Be nice if we didn't have to drive through 10 miles
Yeah,
of traffic to get
so that's
there.
why I say, I think we should just make reservations now and
Sure.
move on from there, so.
Has it, when is it officially?
The blocks haven't opened yet. We
Till
discussed that.
September.
September
Not till
3rd.
September.
Well, let's get our.
That's when the
let's-
conference is?
We can get our block now.
That's when the block
Yeah,
opens.
that's what I said.
Conference is December the 9th and
Okay,
11th.
all right.
September 3rd, reservations open.
Probably half the counties do that same thing already, probably, they
Because I
don't
think
wait.
last
they're
year she
full.
went right away the first day, they were already full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, what else you got?
Just a reminder to all of our department heads, our budget packets are due on Friday. Colleen's already begun to set up dates to meet with Lori and I, and also to come before the board to go through the budgets. And again, just a reminder, we have our county road tour on June 20th. We'll be leaving here from the courthouse at 9 a.m. to look at our 5-year capital improvement projects. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Tony, anything for us? Colleen, anything else?
I was just gonna say, this is what happened last year, and that might happen again. September 3rd's on a Tuesday, and they open up at 8 a.m.
When we're
Just
at
book
board.
us now.
Yeah, make the reservations now.
Okay.
Just to get room reservations for everybody that's going, and, we don't worry
I
about.
think, are we all planning on going? I think so.
Yeah, everybody going?
At least make them for 6 of us,
Sure.
and then Steve.
Is there one in the fall
I'll
also?
check with.
That's it, yeah.
And
That's
That's-
it, Arrowwood.
But I mean, we don't wait for the.
On your birthday.
The block.
Block.
Right.
September
That's
13th.
better.
book 6 rooms or how many room-
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? We're adjourned.